Well, high-intensity baseball is here in a crazy back-and-forth close ball game. The Tigers lose Game 1 to Cleveland in extras. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2000. Did I say December? No, I think I said September. September 17th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Welcome in. Welcome all. We got a lot to get to, so we're going to hop right into it here. The Tigers lose 7-5 to the Cleveland Guardians in the 10th inning. Tigers fall to 85-66 on the season, while Cleveland improves to 79-71. First thought, that was an incredibly intense baseball game. You could feel it. You could feel it through the TV. It was an awesome, tense, I guess I'll say back and forth, but just like close playoff atmosphere. And the Tigers lost, and that obviously sucks. Yeah. They need to bounce back. They need to take care of business. 5 games remaining against Cleveland in the last 11 games of the season now. But this is why you play, right? This is why you compete. These are the type of games that you need to go out there and win. Because if you can't win these games, then you're never going to accomplish anything. This is literally what you play for. A third-party viewer loved this baseball game. Somebody that didn't have a rooting interest loved this ball game. From the Tigers' perspective, they just really couldn't get the big clutch hit, and I say that obviously outside of Kerry Carpenter's home run in the 9th inning. A lot of long at-bats, a lot of walks. They ended, I think, with 9 strikeouts, but they only had 3 through like 7 innings. So we're consistently putting the ball in play. We're hitting the ball pretty hard as well. They went 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. The bullpen was lights out until Will Vest took the mound. Mize, I thought Casey Mize was pretty solid in this one. I certainly don't think he lost you the ball game. Look, if this is any indicator of the baseball that we are going to see over these next couple of weeks and the remaining 11 games of the season, we are going to be in for a wild ride, and we all need to remember to take our heart medication. Man, my brain's going a million miles an hour because it was... I guess we can get into what went wrong here in a second. It is a battle between, I think the Tigers played decent ball in this baseball game. Again, this was close until the bottom of the 10th inning. If they get one hit in the first 9 innings with runners in scoring position, then Kerry Carpenter goes up there and that home run's a walk-off instead of a game tire, right? Like they played a close competitive ball game against the team that's now 8 games over 500 and has playoff aspirations. But the battle within is that you need to be successful in those high intensity playoff atmosphere ball games, because if you can't be, then you're absolutely screwed going forward. It's one game. that I think fits that bill, right? One. We'll see how they look the rest of the series. And then obviously when they go to Cleveland next week as well. What went wrong? We can just get right into the runners of scoring position, the clutch hitting. Just really, again, obviously he had like one of the coolest and biggest moments at the time. Like in the moment, it was one of the biggest moments of the season. But then just had nothing to follow it up. And obviously the 10th inning came along and it was pretty anticlimactic for how close and intense of a baseball game it was. But the Tigers had a lot of guys on base. It had 9 hits, had 3 walks added to that. A lot of base runners, a lot of pressure on the opposing team, and then just completely crumbled with runners scoring position. Through 8, I believe, they were 0 for 5 with RISP. At least through 7, they were 0 for 5 with RISP. I don't think they did much in the 8th either. So it's that's really the difference maker. If you want to highlight one thing, you had the base running. I guess, some people are going to call them blunders. I guess that's fine. And I guess technically maybe, but like this team has been so aggressive all season. It has worked for them very well all season. They're not going to stop. It's not going to happen. They're not going to stop being aggressive because it has worked. It's not like they're just being aggressive and getting thrown out, every single time they try to take an extra 90 feet and they're, losing a ton of games because of it. No, they're winning a ton of games because of it. Their base running value is through the roof. And in this game, it didn't work and it bit them. And Cleveland made some great defensive plays. The Torkelson one I could have done without. I have a hard time really defending that one too terribly much. I'd rather just have a runner on in that situation. But, hindsight's 2020. The Andy Ibanez one, they're going 10 times out of 10. And quite frankly, we've seen it throughout the year. They're probably scoring 7 or 8 out of 10 times on that play. That was a perfect relay from the outfield. It happens. They're Major League Baseball players. It happens. It just did not work out for them. It did. That aggressive base running that we've seen work in their favor so often did not work in their favor in this specific ballgame. And I think that's fair to point out. Another thing that went wrong in this game, Arias, man. This dude absolutely crushed the Tigers' hopes and dreams. I'm not going to say like he single-handedly won, but when the score was 3-2 in the 9th, you were like, holy cow, if this dude just didn't play an incredible baseball game, the Tigers are probably on top. You have the relay we already talked about with Ibanez. He was a part of that. You obviously have the play where, he intentionally dropped the pop-up, got the force at second, and then he had a solo home run at the plate. He had a couple of really nice plays defensively there as well. AJ mentioned after the game, he has one of the best arms in all of baseball from that position. Like, he had a heck of a night, and he was a thorn in the Tigers' side. Obviously, Stephen Kwan is very well known as a thorn in the Tigers' side as well. And then J-Ram. The Tiger Killer title for J-Ram is fair, okay? I'm not saying anything differently. However, this isn't like a Whit Merrifield situation or like a Billy Butler situation where this guy's just like, meh against 28 other teams and then just is Barry Bonds against your team. Like, J-Ram is a killer of a lot of teams. But certainly was in this game as well. Had a couple of hits, had an RBI, had a great play against Javi at third base. And then Will Vest. Will Vest is kind of the last point I want to bring up in terms of what went wrong. 1 inning, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned. The Manfred runner does not count as an earned run. No walks and 1 strikeout. His ERA goes up to 2.91 on the season. I don't have too much to say here because the execution of his pitches was brutal. It was not good. He just didn't have it. The stuff was just quite literally not as good as it has been most of the year. Gave up a ton of contact, and that's what happened. He couldn't get big strikeouts and big swing and miss when the Tigers needed it there in extras. The reason I don't have too much else to say about it is because you were always going to go to Will Vest in the 10th inning. You were always going to Will Vest in that situation. 11 times out of 10. So, yeah. They went to the guy that they objectively should have gone to, and he didn't have it tonight. Not too much else he can do about that. If he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. Frustrating. But again, a crazy ball game. Let's talk about what went right, and then there's just a laundry list of stuff that has come out of this ball game. We will do all of that right after this. First, though, I'm going to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on all the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it is such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. So you can download Prize Picks today. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Also got to talk to you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It has done the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the Cleveland Guardians. Talked about what went wrong in Segment 1. In terms of what went right, there's a handful of stuff. Again, this was a competitive baseball game. Tyler Holton, 1 1/3 of perfect baseball with 1 strikeout, 3.93 ERA now on the season. This was an incredible outing. Scoreless 7th is obviously huge in its own right, but coming in with 2 men in scoring position and 1 out and getting out of it without allowing a single run is incredible work. The cutter was working wonderfully. Obviously, a big part of that as well was Javi Baez going home, Dylan Dingler's tag. The Tigers had a couple of outs at the plate in this ball game that made a pretty big difference, all things considered. Then you have Rafael Montero, who had his best outing of the season. He looked absolutely phenomenal. 1 1/3 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts. For those math whizzes at home, that's 4 outs recorded, 4 strikeouts, and did not allow a base runner. Literally perfect. Like you can't get better than not allowing a base runner and striking out every single out you record. So he was stellar. And a lot of that had to do with the movement on his 2-seam fastball. Just had no fear throwing it really anywhere. And if he can look like that down the stretch and in the postseason, then that's obviously going to go a long way. Gleyber Torres, I feel like his stats after I criticize anything about his game on this show are like Bonds-esque. Talk about how he was struggling in the second half earlier this week. Boom, he goes out, hits a big home run in this ball game. Nobody had a better day at the plate, though, than Spencer Torkelson, who went 4 for 5 with a home run in this ball game. Now, the home run was somewhat of a too little too late situation there in the 10th inning. But even if you take that away, which I think like you can't really take it away, you play every single out until the game's officially over. But even if you do, and you just look at the first 9 innings, that's still a 3-for-4 ball game. And he had a lot of line drive singles in this one, hitting the ball very, very hard. I thought he looked fantastic and took some really good at bats in this one. Had a ball bounce off his glove at first base. That's kind of frustrating. Him and Casey Mize also had the weird, like, are you going to cover? Are you going to cover situation? That proved costly. It certainly was not a perfect all-around game, but in the batter's box, can't get too much better than what he did at the plate. Riley Green 1 for 4 with a hit by pitch as well, so gets on base twice. Had a strikeout as well. Dylan Dingler brought home a run with beating out a fielder's choice there. Also had a knock earlier in the ball game. Parker Meadows gets a start against a lefty, which I think is noteworthy. He was batting 8th, but started against a lefty and then played the entire game, despite the managerial chess that was going on that we'll talk about here in a second. He goes 0 for 3, but he does draw a walk in this game. Has a couple of hard hit balls. On top of that, had one not very hard hit ball, but I was pretty impressed with how he looked in the box and how he handled himself given the situation there. And then, obviously the big moment of this game is Kerry Carpenter, man. He is such a weapon for this team. And, I could hear people that were upset about, you're going to lose 3-2 and Kerry Carpenter's not even going to get in the game and what's happening. And AJ went and said, you know what? We're just going to unload the lefties in the 9th inning. They're going to bring in their righty closer. I know they're going to bring in their righty closer. We're going to all lefties. And the first 2 didn't matter. Kerry Carpenter did. Unbelievable. The 2 biggest moments of his career are both against Cleveland. Unfortunately, this one, the Tigers still lost. And in the other one, the Tigers won that game, but still lost the series. So let's finish the job next time. Okay. Great moment, though. Great at bat. Really, to hit that pitch with that velocity in that location, 430 feet to right center field is diabolical. That takes a special type of offensive talent, and I think it's fair to say that's what Kerry Carpenter is. Okay, stuff. We haven't talked about Casey Mize yet, and I'm putting him in stuff because I don't know. I felt like it was the most fair section to put him in for this when he goes 5 1/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, and then obviously the home run against. We already talked about a 3.88 ERA now on the season. The only reason he's really in stuff is because he wasn't uber efficient, and the mistakes he made were obviously costly. But 7 hits and a home run against. That's and in fewer than 6 innings. That's not going to win you any awards or turn any heads or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But I thought the stuff was fantastic. And that's highlighted by all the swings and misses he had. That's highlighted by the 8 strikeouts in just 5 1/3. The splitter alone had 10 whiffs in this ball game. That's fantastic news. He is a completely different pitcher when the splitter is working versus when it's not. If he is not locating the splitter well and not getting swings and misses on it, then his outings are not very good. When he is, they are substantially better. And I think you saw that to an extent in this ballgame. The fastball I thought was pretty lively. Wasn't located wonderfully a couple of times, but I thought it was really good in terms of, late life to it. The slider was relatively effective to right-handed hitters at least. Yeah, I really do. I think I'm going to use the word love what I saw here from him. I don't really have too much else to say on the outing. It felt disingenuous to put him in what went wrong or what went right. I think even though the line might not be the prettiest thing in the world, the stuff looked, if his stuff looks like that the rest of the season and in October, he's a playoff starter for this team. I am comfortable saying that if he looks like he did now, if he goes out in his next outing and is reverting back to how he looked in August, then obviously then this conversation changes and we flip-flop for like the 50th time in 6 weeks. But this is now like 3 outings in a row where I think the stuff has been noticeably good. And this one was really no different. So if there's anything you can take out of this game, it's that you're kind of holding your breath and hoping that Casey Mize can continue looking like he has. Okay. Let's talk about the managerial battle, kind of the chess that was going on between these two great managers. Then we'll talk a little bit about the bullpen, some roster moves, and we'll obviously preview game 2. We'll do all of that right after this. First, though, I'm going to talk to you all about our friends over at Game Time. We love our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like catching a ball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting those tickets, well, that's the rough part. Queues, logins, surprise fees. It just takes the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage, gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. So you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all these fees are included. So the price you see is actually the price you pay. The app is super simple. I can see my exact view of my seat before I buy. And again, the best feature in the world, fees are included. Know your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, let's talk about the managerial battle in this game. So I thought Hinch managed the bullpen wonderfully. You have Holton, 2 inherited runners, gets out of it, doesn't score. Bailey Horn goes far more and higher leverage than you are usually expecting of him. He goes 2 outs of shutout baseball. Montero, we already talked about him, was literally perfect. And then, in theory, you have your pretty objectively best healthy reliever in extra innings. That's exactly how you draw it up. Every single manager on the planet is going to put Vest in that situation in the ballgame. So I don't think he could have literally managed the bullpen any better. I also think that you look at the names that were thrown in this game, I just complimented them. I thought they did great. It's very important that those guys step up in these last couple of weeks. In the same breath, I can still have, look back to the last day of July and go, wow, I wish we got more at the deadline, because it's a 1-run game. The Tigers are losing a 1-run ball game against a division opponent when you're trying to clinch the division and clinch a playoff berth. And in that 1-run game, you're going Bailey Horn to Rafael Montero. Again, we're fantastic in this game. But you can see the results work in your favor and still understand, okay, well, I wish we had some more. I had some more confidence in this bullpen maybe down the stretch. That's all I'm saying. Tyler Holton is going to go all the time. We know AJ loves to use Holton, and Will Vest is going to go all the time. But that was just an observation I had in this game. So I think Hinch and the relievers both deserve a ton of credit outside of, again, obviously Will Vest. Vogt, absolute masterclass in managing. He's the only guy that I think plays chess along with AJ Hinch. Like, he's the only guy that I really notice how good the managerial decisions are from the opposing team. When the Tigers play anybody in the league, he's the one that stands out the most. He only brought right-handed pitchers in to face batters that he knew Hinch wasn't going to pull specifically for Kerry Carpenter. He waited until literally the last out of the game to finally let Hinch use arguably his best hitter. and it still worked in Hinch's favor. But I think that that's a testament to, the fear, I guess I'll say, that Carpenter can put into opposing managers and whatnot, but also again just how good Stephen Vogt is at his job. That was a masterclass performance of managing a bullpen. Genuinely, I was blown away by all of his decisions. Going to a righty when Gleyber Torres was up specifically, right late in the ball game. It's like, okay, Gleyber's worse against righties, and I know that Hinch is not going to pull Gleyber. So I like that's the situation we're going to go with. Then we're going to go with a lefty to end the ball, or well, before the end, I guess in the 8th inning, right? A guy that doesn't even have great numbers on the season, but I'm going to go to a lefty here so that Kerry Carpenter and the honestly the slew of lefties that AJ has on his bench stay on his bench in the 8th inning. It was really impressive. Roster moves. Brennan Hanafy to AAA before the game. Brant Herter recalled to the majors. That gives the Tigers 3 lefties in their bullpen now, which is nice. And they're going to need that against Cleveland. Cleveland has some guys. I think that's probably somewhat intentional just because of who they're facing, that they're going to want lefties in the bullpen. But I think that, they talked to Brant Herter about it. He said that he was, nowhere near the strike zone. He understood why they sent him down, and hopefully he's made some adjustments to get back into the strike zone consistently. So we'll see. We'll see what his usage looks like. I mean, in this game, they went Holton Horn. they used every single other lefty in the bullpen, not named Brant Herter, in this ball game. So I don't know when the last time he pitched in Toledo is. Maybe that had something to do with it, but we'll see what his usage is here down the stretch. He's going to be an important part of this bullpen. And then we'll see if Hanafy maybe returns. Not sure if there's enough time from now until the end of the season, how many days that is. But, if the Tigers clinch a playoff berth, maybe he's on the postseason roster. That'll probably be a matchup-based thing as well. Also, much bigger than baseball, Clemente Day. 21 patch on all the jerseys. Also, players could wear just the 21 jersey with no name on the back to honor Roberto Clemente. Such a cool thing that baseball has embraced that a lot more over the years. I feel like when I was growing up, it was something that was talked about and that they mentioned, but, it certainly didn't have the, noteworthy celebrations that they have today for it. And I think that that's really important. And they have the Clemente Award, which Tarek Skubal was nominated for the Detroit Tigers. Yet again, similar to, there's similar awards in other sports, but every team has a nominee. Tarek Skubal, again, he's been nominated multiple times for this award. So deserving. And I've said this before. I said this when he got nominated last year, I think. It is so nice to have the best pitcher on the planet at the top of your rotation. It's also incredibly cool to have him be like an active part of the community. His wife has her foundation, which does wonders and is absolutely incredible. Like that family is just the fact that they are so integrated with helping, the community and just helping kind of people in general, I think is so important. It's one thing to have a really good player. It's another thing for your best player to also be a stand-up great guy. And that is something that maybe doesn't matter like between the white lines, but I think does matter in terms of what you want your team to be full of and led by, and kind of for roster, the fans' view of the roster and public perception and whatnot. So tip of the cap to Scoob. Hopefully we see him in game 3. Really just to put a bow on this, man, like this was not a game where the Tigers got smacked or got outclassed or outplayed by their opponent. And I know like people get mad at me whenever I say that. I understand that some people just look at results and that's all that matters. And I have no counter to that. If it truly is just results, I totally get it. But this game was decided by 1 or 2 plays, right? If there's one swing that goes a little bit differently. If that Parker Meadows line drive into the gap falls, then they're tied before the 9th inning. If one of those defensive plays doesn't happen and the ball's 6 inches to the right or left, then the Tigers are still on base or even score a run. A good example or testament to this is expected batting average for this baseball game. This is something that I don't love doing anymore. When I first took over this show, 4 or 5 years ago now, I loved kind of highlighting in post-game recaps. I don't as much anymore. One, a lot of people roll their eyes at it. Two, I've kind of at some point you have to learn how to win, whether the ball is falling in your way or the opponent's way, whether, your hits are like lucky or good contact hits. You have to learn just how to win no matter what. You have to roll with the punches. You can't just be like, oh, well, we were supposed to win. So like no one cares. Again, results are at the end of the day the only thing that matter, like we just talked about. So I don't love using it anymore, but I do think in this game it is so egregious that it's worth at least highlighting. The Tigers' expected batting average was over 290 in this game. Cleveland's was under 230. And sometimes those change, a couple of points. They go back and relook at the data, and maybe that'll change a couple of points. But that's significant enough where it's like, okay, again, the Tigers only had 3 strikeouts in the first 7 innings. They were putting the ball in play. It just wasn't going their way. And you got to adapt, right? Billy Beane quote. Actually, it's more of a Brad Pitt quote than a Billy Beane quote. But adapt or die is the quote in Moneyball, right? Like, you got to figure it out. And I'll end the show with how I started the show. This was a really fun, intense ball game to watch, which also rubbed people the wrong way when I just said that it was a close, fun ball game, which kind of confused me. I would always rather win. I promise you. But in that regard, right, back on track, in that regard, like it was a fun, intense ball game, but you do have to figure out how to win. You have to. Because if you can't win the close, intense, back and forth ball games, then you're not going to last long in the last 2 weeks of the season or in October. Go win game 2. Go make this a series again. Gavin Williams against Jack Flaherty. Gavin Williams is good and has had a really good year. Jack Flaherty has been good against good teams, has struggled against bad teams, has had a couple of, outlier starts thrown in there. It's been a weird year for Jack Flaherty. And so we are hoping that now a couple of solid outings in a row can translate over into this one and they can have a really solid start because they need it. This is what it's all about, man. Like, again, this is why you play. This is why they all do what they do. This is why people love the game of baseball. I know they lost this one. We're all upset. I agree. But this is why you're a fan of the sport, is for these high-intensity moments. Go make the most of it and tie this series up. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping game 2. All right? Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.